Columbia Basin Trust is here for their Board of Directors meetings on May the 27th and 28th here in Valemount. And I thought it'd be a good opportunity to get a chance to know the CBT a little bit more. And with me here today are the President, Chief Executive Officer, and the Board Chair. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us.
So, Neil Muth, you're the CEO and President of the Columbia Basin Trust. Appreciate you guys taking the time to come and talk to me today. I know you've got a really busy schedule lined up for you while you're here. The CBT was founded, as I understand, in 1995, and I want to read what I read off the website, to create social, economic, and environmental well-being in the Canadian portion of the Columbia River Basin, which is 15% of the entire basin, as I understand it, on the Canadian side. So it's a pretty large area. It stretches from Valemount all the way down south to the U.S. border, east to, is it right to the Alberta border?
Yes, Alberta border to Roslyn.
To the west, and as far it encompasses Revelstoke as well on the west side. Yeah, so it's a pretty big area. The core functions of the CBT are, as I understand it, to invest capital and manage the assets of the trust. I believe the current value of the trust is around $321 million. Does that sound about the right ballpark?
Around ballpark. We have an investment portfolio that we refer to, which is over $700 million, the value of the investment portfolio right now.
And also, the second core function is to use the income from the trust's investment to deliver benefits to the Basin residents. So Valemount residents are pretty familiar with the Community Initiatives and Affected Areas program. We use that every year. We receive over $260,000, and some amazing things have happened in the community as a result of that funding. I want to ask you, what are some of the other main CBT programs and initiatives? Whoever would like to take that.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Sure.
We have one program called the Community Development Program, which is a discretionary grant-making program where communities, community organizations, local government can apply to us for funding. We've used that, for example, to fund, assist the community forest here in Valemount in the past, going back several years ago to the Visitor Information Center as well. So that is one general pot. We also have some specific granting programs, social granting program, environment granting program, which again, organizations and communities have taken advantage of. Recent program of ours is a recreation infrastructure funding program. It is a 3-year program, $9 million in total over those 3 years. We have just made the announcements from the first intake of that, and a couple projects here in Valemount have been funded. One is to enhance the bike trails for, I understand, beginners and intermediate, right, and some funding as well for upgrades at the recreation center. So those are examples of the programs that we have.
One of the strategic priorities that you've identified, and I have a copy of them here in your new 2016 to 2020 management plan, is supporting renewable and alternative energy sources. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this, if you had a chance to be briefed on this in Valemount. We are exploring the possibility of geothermal in a very strong way, and have been for quite a few years, trying to now, I guess, get to the point where we're raising money to actually start some exploration drilling. I'm wondering if this is a program that fits with your strategic initiatives, obviously, because one of them is renewable energy sources. How could the CBT, or could the CBT help us with this?
I'll start, and I understand Rick was briefed earlier about geothermal and maybe the project, so you may have things to add. Right now, we are just in the infancy in terms of implementing what we might do under that alternative energy strategic priority that you mentioned, Gord. So we don't know what it really looks like. We are aware of the interest in Valemount and the community around the potential for geothermal development. We are not part of the discussions at this stage. It would all depend whether we saw it as an investment opportunity. I think that's still a long way down the road for us. There'd be a lot of due diligence. One of the areas where we often help communities is just helping them to understand some of the issues around those kind of developments. So that's another area of potential where we could be involved. But at this stage, it's really, we're aware of the interest in the community, but are not directly involved. And Rick may have something to add from his discussions earlier.
I had a tour of the community forest industrial area, and where the Borealis is looking at the geothermal operation. It was interesting to see, one, the energy potential development, but also the impact that it can have with the industrial park, with the community forest there, working with businesses on heating and energy. So it's has a lot of merit and a lot of opportunity.
We've recently had a geothermal conference, this process sponsored by the Canadian Geothermal Association, and one of the things we talked about and we're really excited about, and looking at a place called Klamath Falls in Oregon, is how they use it in their community directly. It's not just an industrial use. They use it for heating homes, for heating shops, for heating schools and government buildings, even for snow melting off the sidewalks and the roads to keep it in there. And our understanding is from the geothermal scientist is that Valemount itself may be sitting on a very large geothermal pool, which makes it very exciting because we could be one of the first Canadian centers, if we're not the first, to do that. And but it takes money and it takes a leap of faith, I think, because it's not like drilling oil. It's a little bit different, and we don't have the backing of that. So hopefully a lot of people are looking to perhaps the CBT to be involved in some point or another. What form that may take, we don't know. But I also want to ask you, another one of your main strategic priorities is broadband, and it's such an important strategic priority that you formed your own corporation, the Columbia Basin Broadband Corporation, the CBBC, in order to help facilitate that. And we've been watching here in Valemount at a lot of the success stories that are coming out of the program. The mission apparently is to provide connectivity to a world-class open access broadband network across the basin. And I don't know, again, if you've been briefed on this, but Valemount has very slow internet. I can tell you from personal experience, because our TV station uploads all of our videos to our YouTube channel. It's very, very slow, especially in the uploading department. So I guess my question is, knowing what's happened in Rossland recently and how it's a little bit of a different model. In the past, communities have had to develop the networks on their own and had to raise the funding and do that. In Rossland, you kind of created a new business model for that, and the CBBC basically owns the broadband, put it in and put all the funding in. How did that work, and is it something that might be applicable in the future to Valemount?
So when we started our initiative in the broadband area, our strategy was develop the network, so the pipe into communities. And we were hoping that communities then would develop what is known as the last mile network within the communities. They would build that, they would plug into, I'll try to keep this as non-technical as possible, plug into our infrastructure, and we would enhance broadband services in communities. And we found, and that's a model that we adopted in the community of Trail. We found, of course, and I'm sure Valemount is not unlike a lot of other communities, there's a lot of demands on local government in terms of the services that are needed, infrastructure deficits. So you're correct, Gord, we used Rossland as a different model where we said we will build the last mile network. We will build it, we will own it, we will control the revenue that comes from it. In Trail, there was a sharing of revenue because the municipality owned the network. And we're in really early stages. His own recently was completed, but there's some positive signs and take up from businesses in Rossland about it. So we're excited about that. The key, though, is that ability to plug into our fiber network. And Valemount, unfortunately, is a long way away from our fiber network. So the model that we have in Rossland or other communities is not readily transferable to Valemount just because of that distance, and the cost to build, for us to build fiber to Valemount would be probably prohibitive. So that doesn't mean we can't help the community and look at options. We've been going at it for about 3 or 4 years, and we are now starting to do things that we didn't dream about even 3 or 4 years ago in terms of the capacity to help communities. So who knows in the future, but just the geographic distance from our network will be an obstacle.
It's a refrain we hear quite often from TELUS and other providers as well, and we need to get something done, so it's kind of frustrating for us. Can I ask you, I guess, what else would you like to know? Would you like people of Valemount and the area to know about the CBT? I think, as I said at the beginning, we're really familiar with the CIAAP program, and because they utilize that every year. But I think a lot of people don't really understand the breadth of the programs that you offer, and that the mandates are not just tourism related. They're socioeconomic related. They're seniors related. They're youth related, etc. What message would you like people to take from this talk we're having today?
Last year, we had what we referred to as our Trust Our Future community consultations, where we went to every community within the basin to talk about the increase in revenue that we are going to be experiencing and what the communities would like to see and what they think we should be doing with some of that increased revenue. From those consultations, there was 3,500 people that attended throughout the basin, the different communities, and all of the ideas brought down to 13 priorities, and they go from agriculture, housing, economic development, early childhood development, social. And we've taken the 13 priorities. We want to get involved with all of them, all 13 over the next 5 years. We've started with economic development, affordable housing, and agriculture. And we're going to start to put programming around those three. And then we will get into the remainder of the priorities that the people of the basin told us they wanted to see happen.
So when you speak about economic development priorities, are these development priorities that the communities are bringing forward, or ideas that the CBT is bringing to them?
Both. There would be the catalyst around, or the idea around the economic development is, can CBT be a catalyst towards job creation? Now, whether that is working with municipalities or working with industry, getting creative as to things that can be done in economic development to assist communities in creating employment, helping to keep our youth in the basin, help communities that have been impacted by mill closures, such as Valemount, Canal Flats. There's a number of communities that. And we're just developing the programming now, so.
Well, I think Valemount is not unique in the fact that we've lost our mill. There's, forestry has been affected across the province. But what we've noticed is that a lot of what we call lone wolves or solo entrepreneurs are moving into the area who can work with out of a large center. They can work in small centers as long as they have the broadband connectivity and the speed that they have for there. But it's ideas and it's passion and it's small business. It may not be employing 100 people. It may be employing 5 people and then 10 people and then 20 people. Will you support those type of small business entrepreneurial ideas?
Absolutely, and that's going to be at the heart of a lot of communities, where you take the small entrepreneurs with 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 jobs and multiply that times 20. It can be a significant impact to the community.
So is it safe to say then, with your strategic priorities, and a number of them being economic development, renewable energy, agriculture, that you're moving towards more of a, perhaps not more, but you're focusing a little bit on the development of economic resources back into the community as well? Is that something that you would say is more of a focus for you now?
It certainly is a focus, but working with the community rather than doing it for the community. Being the catalyst to help make it happen.
So that person sitting at home with a great idea for a new something or other, a service or a product, what's the first step they would take in terms of working with the CBT?
We haven't developed that yet. We're just in the process of creating programs for economic development, agriculture, housing, and we'll also be doing that with the other strategic priorities. But there's so I don't have an answer for that at the moment. There are programs that we have in place now that have been working for the last number of years, that if someone has an idea and they think that CBT could help, ideally just call the 800 number on the website, and the receptionist would put them in touch with whoever within CBT is working with that type of initiative.
I would just reinforce Rick's last point. So to that person at the home who has some idea, reach out to us and talk to us. There may not be anything that we can do to help them at this stage, but there also may be something we can do as well. I can directly relate to initiatives that we have underway that have come from just conversations that weren't intended to lead to a new program or something. So I really would encourage people to reach out to us. They can get our contact information through our website. We have a staff person whose primary role covers Valemount in terms of the area that she covers. And she can put individuals in touch with the particular people at Columbia Basin Trust who have the knowledge in a particular field. So that would be my plea, is don't sit at home and wait for us. Reach out to us and see if we can help you.
All right, so get your good ideas and get them going now, right?
Yeah.
Another large part of your strategic initiatives are seniors and youth, and communities such as Valemount and communities everywhere. The population's aging, and more needs to be done in terms of senior care, senior housing, senior assistance, and the same thing for youth. And I believe you mentioned it as well, Rick. You were talking about keeping the youth in the communities, and that's obviously in any small town is a big concern for us. So, what specifically have you got on the books or ideas have been generated in terms of seniors and youth?
So I'll start with the youth. We have had a long-standing youth initiative at the Trust for over 10 years. Had a number of different programs. We recently have made quite a significant change in how we're supporting youth throughout the Columbia Basin. We're building it off what we refer to as a youth basin network model. Communities within the basin can approach us for funding. I think it's up to $50,000 or $55,000 a year to run a youth program in their community. Valemount has been active with us. They participated in our previous youth programming and are transitioning into the new program. We haven't yet completed our agreement, but it's not far away. We recently held a youth summit in Kimberley that Rick spoke at, and there were a number of youth from Valemount that traveled down with a couple of chaperones to participate in that and participate in that broader networking. So there's opportunities to deal with community priorities for youth and youth's priorities within a community, but as well participate in a broader network. With respect to seniors, we have to date largely addressed it through a reactive approach. So community organizations would come to us with a particular project that might be aimed or tailored for seniors, and we would look at that and fund it on a project by project basis, different than our approach in youth. And for at least the next little while, that will continue to be our approach for seniors. One of the other initiatives that Rick mentioned in terms of the priorities that came out was affordable housing. And we work with communities to identify what are the particular needs for affordable housing. Affordable housing is a big spectrum, so there may be affordable housing for youth, there may be affordable housing for marginalized individuals, and certainly affordable housing issues for seniors throughout the basin. So and that's an example where if there was a group in Valemount who identified a need for affordable housing support, we could work with them to say what is the particular priority, whether it is seniors or any of the others I mentioned. And then we have provided support to support capital costs associated with housing. And we're just gearing up that work again in response to the direction we received from residents through that engagement process that Rick outlined.
an organization has just been formed. There was the affordable housing study done here, and as a result of that, an organization has been formed to further push the needs of that. And I'm sure they'll be in touch because they've got some good plans for that, which would, I believe, incorporate and encompass seniors housing as well in a broader spectrum. I think that's really all I wanted to talk to you about today. I guess, Rick, it bears mentioning that you're the new board chair. When did you take over?
January 1st.
And how has it been going for you so far?
Oh, good. It's just been a few months, but we've got an excellent board, 12-member board, and an exceptional staff, so they make it pretty easy.
Our Mayor Jeanette Townsend is fond of saying she's a retread. she's been there and done that, and she was one of the founding board members of the CBT, and I believe sits on the investment committee, if I'm not mistaken, as well, and has great things to say about the CBT. And people in Valemount generally are very supportive of the work that you do, and really want to see it push forward and do even more in the future. Is there anything you'd like to mention that we haven't talked about that you'd like people to know?
Not that we haven't talked about, but just to reiterate the point, if people have ideas, if they feel that Columbia Basin Trust can support them, by all means reach out to us and engage us in a dialogue, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and hope the board meeting goes well and you come away from Valemount with some great new ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gord.